Okay, so we are back with the program, and we have a special guest today. I have no idea how to pronounce her last name, so maybe she can help me out with that one.
Shouldn't you have asked me that
Brittany,
before?
would you mind introducing yourself first with your name and what you do right now?
My name is Brittany van Schravendijk, or that's the American way to say it. The Dutch way would be a little harder. It's van Schravendijk. But we'll leave it at the American way to say it is fine. So I'm a kettlebell coach here in San Diego, California. I've been competing in kettlebell sport for almost 7 years. So I have won a world championship last year. I have several world records left, I think, some national records, and I do a lot of handstands as well. So, and day job, I guess, more of like personal training, online kettlebell coach.
So how did you get started in kettlebell sport? Kind of tell us like how you your background in it.
Yeah, so I was in college at UC Berkley. I had been a walk-on onto the track and field team my first year. That was kind of my first love in athletics was track and field, but that didn't end up working out. So my start of my third year in college, I actually got an internship at Ice Chamber, which, as most of you guys know, is one of the best gyms in the U.S. for kettlebell sport training. But I didn't know that. I had no idea. I didn't know what a kettlebell was. But I just happened to be lucky and walk into this awesome gym. So I got an internship there and saw the female trainers lifting these heavy kettlebells. And I was kind of like, I should be able to do that. And so I picked up a bell and was like, oh, this is actually really hard.
Tell us about the what the internship was about. What was the...
Because you were taking engineering, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get an internship in a gym?
Well, I was sort of looking for another physical outlet. Like I wasn't really loving my studies and kind of felt like I wasn't very balanced. Like I was doing some workouts on my own, but I kind of missed having either a team or a group environment for physical training because I had been on the track and field team just through high school. And so I was just looking at part-time jobs. I kind of felt like I wanted something else to add to my life at the time. And then I just kind of stumbled across this internship. It was on the UC Berkeley Career Center website because the owners of Ice Chamber are Cal alumni. So they would get college students to just help them run warm-ups and help people with form during their classes and stuff like that. So it was just kind of a physical outlet for me and something different for my studies.
How instrumental was that for shaping you as a coach?
Really instrumental. That changed my path from becoming an engineer to becoming a personal trainer. So it was I absolutely loved working there. It was a really eye-opening experience for me, and the owners, Steve and Maya, were really big mentors for me. So it was a really cool time to work there.
So when you worked there, did you kind of just get into kettlebells, or did you do the other stuff too? Because they have other components like strength training classes and whatnot as well. Right?
I think people get the impression that Ice Chamber is just all kettlebell sport all the time, but that's not true at all. I mean, most of the members there do they're boot camp classes, so they have a whole range of stuff. And I think now they're even doing a lot of jujitsu stuff. But
right.
I wasn't totally into the kettlebells at first. I was kind of just taking a bunch of the classes and trying different stuff. I did some powerlifting. I would jump into the boot camps and then try some kettlebells. But it wasn't until probably 6 months or so into working there that I was like, no, I want to do a competition. I want to start competing in this.
And was that completely your choice, or were you kind of pushed into that direction?
No, it was my choice. I think even Steve had some kind of test for me where he was kind of just like I said, I wanted to do a competition. He was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And I was like, no, I really want to do it. And he was like, well, you have to sign up for one. Otherwise I'm not sure you're really serious.
that reminds me of like Batman Begins or movies like that where it's like, oh, I don't think you're ready. You need to prove to me that you're ready.
I mean, Steve has all kinds of tactics like that.
I believe it. I totally believe it. So, okay, from there, how did you kind of make the decision to kind of go out on your own or go somewhere else to be a trainer? Because you moved from the ice trainer to San Diego, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I loved working at Ice Chamber. However, I had lived in Berkley for like a little over 5 years at that point, like when I had decided to move. And I just kind of like, I didn't make a ton of close friends in college. The friends I did have like had moved away. There weren't a ton of people at the gym that were my age either. Most of the trainers are married and have kids. And most of the people at the gym were like a little bit in an older age bracket. So I kind of felt a little like socially it wasn't quite like the best environment for me. And I lived in the Bay Area my whole life. And I kind of just wanted to move out somewhere different. So I think I had gotten a little bit stuck in a routine in certain ways and felt like my life was going to look the same 5 years from then if I didn't do something. So I ended up visiting some friends in San Diego and just loving like the environment and it's just there's so much fitness stuff happening in San Diego. There's so many like well-known fitness people based in San Diego that it was just kind of the right decision at the time. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, I want to go out on my own now, so I'm going to leave. That wasn't really the decision. It was more just like, I want a change. And then it ended up leading to doing additional kettlebell stuff on my own that I didn't really expect, I guess.
Right. I think too, like, I know I've gone through similar things where you love the environment that you're in, but you know that to make improvements in yourself, you have to choose to move on. And it's nothing about the people that you're working with. It's just that you need more diversity. And to do that, you have to leave and go meet new people and get new experiences. And that's only going to build to your skill set.
Exactly.
So it's a huge advantage to be able to go somewhere else and now learn from a different group of people because it's only going to broaden your skill set.
Totally.
And I think sometimes we make the mistake of staying too long.
Yeah.
So I can totally respect why you would want to move on and whatnot.
Yeah.
So
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, so what is your main focus now as like a personal trainer or a kettlebell coach? Like, where are you directing your main focus currently?
It's a good question. I mean, would definitely say that a big part of my focus is I would like just more people in general, the general population, to learn how to use kettlebells correctly. Because I just feel like, there's so much there's kettlebells everywhere now, but I feel like people still don't know how to use them. So just trying to help spread that education about kettlebells is a big focus for me. Training my kettlebell sport athletes at Core Strength and Conditioning, and then I also have a group of athletes that I train online for kettlebell sport. So, helping them as best I can. A lot of them, aren't in an area where there is a kettlebell sport coach around. So while, there's some challenges to online coaching, I definitely think in many, many cases, it's much better than having no guidance at all.
Right. Yes. Because at least there's some communication and there's video now, which is super helpful.
Yeah.
And so if people look at your website, it's obvious that you don't just do kettlebell sport. But those who maybe don't check out your website on a regular basis, what is your, I guess, this is kind of a tricky way to word it, but you want to just help people use kettlebells in general. So you're kind of doing general fitness on top of the kettlebell sport because you've kind of got videos for both.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I realize that kettlebell sport is a very small niche, which is
Right.
great, because it's helped me build a lot of what I've done so far on that, because it's such a unique thing that, there's not many other people in the world that could boast the same skills that I've acquired for kettlebell sport. That being said, I know that it's not something that everybody wants to do. Therefore, I think it's important to still cater to the people who want to use kettlebells just in general for fitness, and maybe they use some, elements of sport type of training. But I think that's still a big population, and many people that get just into kettlebell training will naturally gravitate to being curious about kettlebell sport. So it also helps, grow the sport from there as well.
Right.
What I miss? Anything good?
Everything good.
Sully had to go answer the door. Someone was at the door.
Oh no. Tell them, put a sign in your door, podcast in session.
Yeah. Do not interrupt podcasting. So what would you say is the biggest barrier for you? Let's say getting in new clients or directing the clients into these categories of kettlebell sport versus just regular fitness.
I guess one of the challenges would be I feel like it's kind of, you have your in-person training and recruiting clients, and then you have your online training and recruiting clients. And I think while it's great that we have this online avenue to promote ourselves at this point, it's also just so loud. There's so much noise on the internet about, especially in fitness, I feel about people promoting this or that. And sometimes I just get I don't even want to try to compete with this. I just don't even, it just seems so silly to try to promote super hard, through social media or Instagram or whatever. So I would say it's kind of a challenge in terms of you kind of have to play the game a little to get clients, but then not really wanting to just waste hours of my life trying to promote myself online. You know what I mean?
One thing that I had come to a realization with was that, so many of my clients want to ask me for my opinion on things where they could just freely go out on the internet and find information anywhere. But I think the relationship that you develop with your clients where they trust you and they want to know what you think, it becomes more about what your opinion is rather than maybe what necessarily the facts or the truth is. And so then that does almost then become incumbent upon you to provide your own database of information for, mainly specifically your people. But then, of course, you can make that, publicly available to everybody else. That's the whole YouTube thing.
Yeah.
But, I struggled with that at first as well. It's why should I do these things when there's so many other people putting out all that content? And then I realized, after so many clients were kind of asking me what my thoughts were, and rather than just sending them to me trying to find random videos that I think, kind of fall in line with what I want to try and convey, I may as well just kind of do it myself.
That's true. That's a good point. One of the other things I find really interesting is that, it may just speak to my own getting better at selling myself as a trainer, but I feel like it's easier for me to sell somebody into online training where they could be paying me upwards of $300 a month for sending them an online program than getting somebody to train with me in person. And I'm not sure if this is because I kind of have a little bit of an online presence, and then people see oh, she's this good kettlebell lifter, all the way across the country, and I can train with her, versus somebody in the San Diego area not really knowing anything about kettlebell sport, then coming in and not seeing necessarily what I would have to offer for them. It's kind of a funny disconnect there.
There is a little bit of an allure of that, the distance does play a role. I think there's the allure of something that's either foreign or maybe foreign is not the right word, but it's kind of like with food as well. People are attracted to things that come from other countries, right? And that's how a lot of things are marketed. Try our are, product X only found in, the remotest regions of the Amazon, right? There's an alert to that.
Yeah.
I think also, like, you've done such a good effort of putting material out there that people can spend hours literally reading stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where when they come into the gym, they don't really put effort into like researching. I don't think they just show up and they want to be told.
Yeah.
But if they're going to go online and follow something, they're going to kind of spend some time. Oh, do I want to do this or whatnot? And because you have so much material, I think people kind of feel very special to be able to be like, oh, Brittany's coaching me. Because like even when you showed up at OKC, the vibe of some of the people who had to lift on the same platform for you as you, people were so nervous. But I think it's because you don't walk around like you have this air of celebrity, like you're very humble, but because you have such a great presence on the internet and people spend time looking at it, they're scared to kind of say hi or right.
Yeah.
So I think there's also that
there's this weird social dynamic that happens when people watch someone every day on YouTube and then they feel like they know that person and then they go and meet them in real life and it's like, I don't know what to do.
Totally.
It's kind of become our TV, right?
Yeah.
So
it's the new reality TV, right? You just watch everybody on the internet.
So I think the fact that you've like, I personally am impressed with how much you can put out because for me, I'm always like, oh man, I can't even figure out how to find the time to create a video, edit it, and put it online that it's so hit and miss with me. But like you, every Monday, you've got your Monday workout and everything.
Thanks. I often feel like I'm not putting out enough content. Like I used to, when I first started my blog, I feel like I was really like, because I started it when I moved to San Diego and I also didn't have a job at first. So I was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to like post all this content on my blog. So I do post the weekly videos, but I feel like I've been slacking a little bit on like the blog front. So I'm trying to, now that I redid my website, like have that up and going, I'm trying to like be a little bit more diligent about content, but it definitely is tough.
That's a good thread that we can follow. How did you manage at the start to stay diligent about putting out content, and what are the challenges that you're finding right now? And then, is there an irony to this whole thing where the more popular you get, the less time you feel like you have to put content out?
Well, you probably have more clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning, a lot of that motivation was just driven by like, oh, well, first of all, there wasn't really any blog or website out there putting any information about kettlebell sport on the internet. So I was kind of like, okay, like I could be this source for, just posting some tips with stuff that I've learned and create some place for people to go to on the internet to get more info about kettlebell. So I was motivated by that. And especially because that was kind of going to San Diego and knew that like in the fitness world, it's very competitive here and it's very transient. Like people are constantly coming and going, but kettlebell sport was something unique I knew that I could leverage. So I think it kind of just was a motivating factor also just from a career standpoint. And then using that as, a little bit of a resume too, like, oh, I have this website where I'm kind of established as a source for kettlebell sport information. So I'd say that would be the motive. That was a good enough motivation to stay consistent when I started. And now I feel like, I don't know, I guess I'm not sure how, again, with all the noise that's out there, I'm like, I don't know how much people really want a blog post every single week, or if that's really like, something that they're looking for. I felt like I got the most feedback about, oh, I love the workouts you post every week. So I was like, okay, I'm going to definitely keep that going.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like you've really laid the groundwork, like, because you put out so much material, all you really need to is probably just keep a little bit going just to keep the website like active and like keep people going to it. But you've got so much material on there that you've laid the foundation for people to go and still be able to communicate with you. Like, to me, the biggest thing is that you send out those newsletters, because that's what I look at.
Yeah.
Is when the newsletter comes out. And that just reminds me to go to your website or go to your YouTube channel when you've got new material that I want to look through.
I'm like, that's good to know, because I kind of been toying with the idea of putting out like a monthly new Kettlebell Sport kind of like newsletter thing where keeping people up to date with like what's going on or like what events are happening or like what athlete's Instagram profile to look at or something. But I just haven't really, I
think it's a great idea.
Yet,
I was just thinking this morning, I was like for a short period of time, the AKA had a little newsletter that was going out, but then it's kind of disappeared and we're so spread out. It would be nice.
Is that their GS Planet one?
Yeah, the GS Planet. It would be nice if like there was something just to keep everyone kind of in the loop. Like, yeah, people kind of creep each other's profiles and everyone's friends on Facebook, but there's nothing really like highlighting all the various competitions or anything. And
somebody had suggested I put like a calendar on my website with all the different like kettlebell events that people could submit to, which would be kind of cool, but it would kind of rely also on people like telling me about their events. Cause at this point, like there are so many. This is the challenge I've run into with keeping records on my website is like, I'm not really sure my records are accurate anymore because I used to go just check all the events and just go through the result lists. But at this point, there's just, because I've expanded it to multiple organizations and then there's so many events happening all over that it's really hard to actually keep track of it all.
So that kind of was one of my questions. How do you feel about all these different kind of associations popping up? No, I'm kind of curious because we don't get to talk to Brittany very often. So hearing someone from somewhere else, like, do you think it's about money or do you think it's about the rules or do you think about
power?
Is that what you think it is? Is about power?
I think it just, for some reason, there's just like these very strong opinions of exactly how things should be run, I feel like, and people it just seems like certain people just keep butting heads and they're like, well, I'm just going to go off and start my own thing. Like, bye, instead of trying to work together, I guess, because there are multiple orgs already that they're like, well, what's another one, right? Just like split off and do it my own way.
And part of the reason I bring this up is, so for our competition, we're probably not going to affiliate with anyone. We're just going to run a competition. Mm-hmm. It means that we're not going to have a ranking system. So I don't know if that will affect people, whether they come to the competition or not, because really what matters on the platform is, are you performing better than what you did last time? Are you making improvements? Does it really matter? Especially for those people who get rank, they might not move on from the bell because they've got a goal of 200 snatches, but they only had to do 110 to get rank. So does rank really matter for a competition? At the same time,
it matters for official historical records within the association, which at the current moment in time, I think, I mean, there's not really any of that really in existence. I mean, I'm sure the IUKL has records and stuff like that, and they keep track, but
they do, but they don't post them on the internet.
Even the CKAs, that position was taken over by someone who's not even a figurehead in the CKA, and then the AKA, I think, Brittany, you started to spearhead that whole thing, so.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like the organization, like, what are the organizations offering that besides having a ranking table that would, make people be like, oh, I want my event to be under this organization, as opposed to, like you said, why not just run it yourself? Because at this point, there's not a big enough benefit.
There's not incentive.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is like, so I honestly, when we choose our competitions, right now we're focusing our competitions on our clients. So where do our clients want to compete? That is where we're going to go. So it's mainly local. Yeah. So we're going down over to Vancouver, down to Seattle. Well, every single competition is a different federation, whether it is Ket Academy, IKFF, we've got some CKA events around in this area. So everyone is different. The rankings are different. The weight classes are different. That the biggest thing to me, and I'm like, do I weigh in over or under? And I don't even know. And like one competition, it was IKFF and Ket Academy. So I made one weight class and I didn't make the other because there were two different ranking tables. That it's so confusing that I kind of stopped paying attention, and I'm just more like, okay, I'm going to show up at the competition. I want to hit 180 today. That's my goal. And I think that's kind of what it, at least for me, that's what it's coming down to, is like not even paying attention to who is associated to who. I just want to compete.
I think that changes also, the longer you've been in the sport. I feel like when you're a beginner, you're kind of looking for some guidance and looking for like, well, how do these competitions go? Like, I'm looking to somebody to show me what this looks like and what I need to do and what happens, and I can get a rank, like I can use this ranking table to help me. And then the longer you're in the sport, you realize that there's 7 different organizations and it's all kind of slightly shifted, and ranks don't matter as much to you because you want to do higher than that. It's like your perspective just kind of changes, and unfortunately, I don't think any organization thus far has totally gotten it right in terms of like how they're running things and what they're offering the people who are hosting and the lifters. So that's kind of, I think, been the challenge.
Yeah. So, and part of the reason I went in this direction with my questions was you had briefly mentioned at OKC that you and maybe some other people are trying to coordinate a circuit of kettlebell events. Is that correct?
Yes. And it was not my idea. I definitely could not take credit for that. It was John Buckley's idea from OKC.
Okay.
So he was trying to just get all of us who are in California, who are kind of hosting the big events in California, to be on the same page and to offer, events that are spread out enough through the year that, we can all support each other's events in some way. And he even wanted to have the different events have different, like, different focuses. Like, for example, Mike LeBou is hosting an event at the end of this month. That's a long cycle championship. And then
I do remember seeing that. I do kind of like that idea.
Yeah. And then the NorCal event in August is supposed to be kind of focused on like the 5-minute triathlon. But that's kind of as far as it's been established thus far. Like, we don't really have an exact focus for our competition in San Diego. It just kind of has all the events, or at least it has so far.
Right.
But that was kind of his idea. And he's like, we have, a lot of the best lifters in the world are in California. Like, we just want to set up a circuit so that people, like, if they want to compete, they have to come out to California and, show their skills and beat the lifters in California if they really want to prove that they're the best.
I like that idea. That's neat. So, do they have a calendar for that, or is it kind of just you guys are kind of trying to figure out the kinks right now?
Well, we kind of have the major events are kind of set. So we have February is Cali Open, May is Long Cycle Championships, August is like an event in NorCal, and then I can't remember if there's going to be another one, but then we have ours in San Diego in December. So those are kind of like the main ones. And then we had like me and Mike Salemi hosted the Silicon Valley comp, but that was not going to happen this year. I'm not sure if Mike is planning to do it again next year, but if so, that one might be like more September, October or something like that.
And are they thinking about incorporating like a point system or anything to encourage people to go to all of these events? Are they?
Originally, I think it was set up that they would kind of be like WAKSC events. So then you would get points maybe towards the Grand Prix if they're part of it. But I don't really know what's happening with all of that since Dennis is no longer really part of that. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was he kind of a big influencer in that?
Well, he was pretty much running the whole calendar for WAKSC, but now he's starting his own organization, which is IKO. So I think that might just kind of shift to being what IKO is doing. I'm not totally sure.
Oh, I originally interpreted that he was actually OKC, like he was affiliated with the OKC. So that was a misinterpretation.
No, he is. He moved to California last year, so he's a coach, like the head kettlebell coach at OKC now. Okay. But OKC has, I think they've always used Ket Academy ranking tables. So they've always kind of been affiliated with WAKSC. Right. So yeah, because OKC, they don't have like their own ranking table. You think they're usually like, okay, it's an OKC event, but it might be governed by WAKSC or now I guess IKO.
Right. See, it gets confusing.
Yes. Brittany, what's the percentage of your lifters at your gym who actually participate in kettlebell competitions? Like the ones who are taking the kettlebell sport classes, what percentage of them are actually competing?
Most of the people who are in the class compete. I would say all of them have at least competed once. So we have it right now. It's been a little bit slower after Worlds. Some people kind of either take a break or focus on something else for a while. But typically, like leading up to Worlds, we probably had about 15 people training. And I think,
what do you find is their consistency like in the year? So how many competitions are they actually doing throughout the year? Is it 1? Is it 5?
Good question. It's probably 2 to 3. Some of the people, like we have some people that are like the diehards on the team, and they're doing, all the local comps, and
they're just like
every single one.
Give me more. If there's a competition, put me in it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you find that there is an optimal frequency for some people? So we did an in-house standard competition. When did we do that?
April.
Yeah, in April. And that was 4 months after our last one, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of long of a break for a lot of people. They kind of felt like they didn't have as much direction in between
goal
those
setting.
two things that they maybe wanted. But at the same time, after we wrapped that up, I said, okay, well, we'll switch the in-houses to every 2 months. But then we got really into the idea of doing a pentathlon of our own. So I was like, okay, well, we'll put the pentathlon right in the middle. And what I found was that there were a lot of people who were like, 1 month is not enough.
Enough time in between?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the impression I'm getting, though.
Yeah.
Do you find that with some of your lifters? Do you find that there's like some people are like really skittish about like having a month or less, or what's that like?
Luckily, there's a core crew of people that are super dedicated that will come to class whether or not there's a comp coming up. But I do think, like you said, if it's too far apart, spread too far apart, there's not as much motivation for people to stay consistent because they don't have a goal right up ahead of them to work for. So, I mean, I feel like every 3 months is great to have a comp, with some different focus during class. Like maybe we're not training for that comp for all 12 weeks. Maybe it's, 8 or 10, but keeping a certain focus in class. So maybe we're still training like we're getting ready for a 10-minute long cycle set, even if, there's not actually a comp. We still do, like Saturdays, oftentimes we'll have a long set. So, we'll have a 10-minute set somewhere in there that they know they're training for. So it's still giving them some goal, because I could see, people aren't as likely to stay on track if it's too far out, like you said.
Do you find it's hard for some of your people to recognize the value in consistent, dedicated training where, the progress isn't necessarily as obvious in some respects? So especially if you have people coming who are looking to, say, lose weight, in the fitness industry, that a good bulk of our clients are going to come to us for the purpose of managing their weight or managing their health. And those types of improvements aren't really that obvious. And I think that's why I think it's important to push strength and skill and sport aspects, because we can start to really see the progress. So is it do you have some people who you have to kind of nudge every now and then and kind of remind them that, you started here and now you're here, and yeah, we have this big gap in here where it's you maybe not training for something specific, but the fact that you come in, X times a week and we're, adding this much each time, hopefully you can see that progress. Do you find that challenging?
I think that, fortunately, I've kind of established that culture within the kettlebell sport class, and there's enough people in there who have been training kettlebell sport now for at least 2 to 3 years. And what I love seeing about the class is there's certain things that I've put out there or told them or kind of drilled into their head in terms of like how kettlebell sport training goes and how progress works. And a lot of times I'll see the people, the kind of OGs of the class will kind of sprinkle these things to the new people. Like they'll go over and chat with them at the end of class and be like, it takes a while to make this kind of progress in here, but you got to keep looking at, your technique is making these gains or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's definitely established a little bit into the culture. And I would say it's definitely something that, every class I'm kind of checking in with each member of the team on their whatever point of technique we're working, what's their pace for their set, how did they feel on this versus last week, and kind of, those check-ins, I feel like I'm able to like, that's great, that's a great progress from last week, or, that's exactly where we need you to be right now, and keep reminding them of, the progress that they either have made or how they're going to keep progressing moving forward.
Can you give us an example of a moment that you had with a client or even a close friend where you felt like you needed to pull them aside and give them a heart-to-heart on, where they're at, where they're going, and help them along on their journey?
I mean, before the Worlds competition, I had all of them fill out this sheet that I have on like mental training for kettlebell sport, and they had to fill out the sheet on like what they think about during their set, how could they improve it, make a plan for their competition set. And I mean, I just set up a time to meet with all of them, and I feel like during those meetings we just talked about what things they feel might be holding them back, or what things they would need to do to improve, especially with regards to the mental portion, which, can be maybe a little bit more challenging to talk about, because normally in class, we're just talking about the physical training versus a lot of times I feel like the mental aspect of it that's holding people back. I don't know if I really answered your question with that, but
I actually really like that idea. I was just with my weightlifting team on the weekend, and we had a task of guessing the total team total. So everyone's totals topped on top of each other. What would it be? And I said to a couple of the people, I said, we're all assuming that everyone's going to PR, and we're not really considering people's mental states. And one of the girls said, "Oh, guys, why'd you have to say that? Like, how I am when it comes to like my mental capacity." But that kind of answered it, right? Like, she knows that she goes into competitions not exactly mentally focused or whatever it is, something's throwing her off. So that kind of exercise would be really good to prepare the coach even to just make sure that you're with that person, getting them on the right mindset to really be able to, because you see that, like, you see, especially when you see lifters lift several times, you start to see their pattern. The person who overthinks the set, or they just have one bad insertion and it's going to go down from there, where you can get other athletes and you'll be like, it's okay, next one's a brand new one, insert deep. And they're back on track. So
I definitely really like that. Several of the athletes that have been training with me for a few years now, there's definitely certain challenges that I know, continue to come up for them on the platform, or certain patterns or habits or little things that are hard for them to get past. And so, we've had many conversations, still work in progress, on trying to figure out exactly why that happens. How can we strategize a way to try it differently next time? I think it's a really fun element of coaching, and so crucial, and something that is not talked about enough in kettlebell sport, especially, is the mental aspect. Because I feel like it's 90% mental. You could be as physically prepared as anyone and just fail on the platform if you don't think about, how you're going to respond in the competition situation.
Yeah, no, I find it so intriguing, but I think it's partially because it's part of my work. So I get really excited when it comes to the psychology of it.
It's so important, though. I feel like so much of coaching, you can write a great program, but if it's a competitive thing, you have to address the mental part, because some people just get anxiety going into a competition. Yeah. So
I think it really separates people. Like, you can have two athletes that can do the exact same thing, but the person with the mental strength is going to be the one that wins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And of course it's interrelated with physical training, because, that's part of building a good program, is also instilling confidence in the lifter. If you have a coach that just absolutely crushes you every training, you never feel like you win at your training session, then you're probably not going to go into the competition feeling so great, depending what type of person you are. But I feel the training really should bolster confidence in many ways. Yes, of course, it should challenge you and push you, but it should also build confidence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We, after our last in-house, a few people commented that they didn't even realize, how the training was helping them improve until they did their test set. And then they were blown out of the water about what they were capable of. The one girl had a 30 rep PR, and she was just blown away.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I don't even think she even really understands how big of a PR that is, because then we have another client who he's like, oh, I only got 2 more. And I was like, that's still big, but it's only 2. But actually, it's an improvement.
It was a 45 rep PR.
So. It was a 45. Wow. That's huge. Yeah.
That's huge. That's awesome.
She only comes once a week, but you can tell that she, I sold her a kettlebell as well, and I give her some programming and stuff to do at home. And you can tell that she thinks about it and she practices it. So
yeah.
And that's a big difference. The training can be pretty straightforward in terms of, as at this point, as trainers, we know how to put together a program that follows the basic concept of progressive overload, or not necessarily overload, but
building the set.
Building the set. With our sport in particular, there we have to pay attention to conditioning elements and the time dependent elements. But it's really the mark of a good coach who can identify the weaknesses in someone's game and then take that weakness and give their athlete direction on how to improve that weak link, to then help them go to improve beyond there. Because, you can just keep banging your head against the wall and just doing the sets over and over again. But if you're not really doing it with the intent and the focus as to what exactly part of that, because I like to be very segmental with my kettlebell training, in that, some of you have trouble with this part, so we're going to focus on that part, and I really try to address those things.
Yeah, I think that the other thing is you could write the best program in the world, but most of us are coaching people who are doing kettlebell sport for fun and for fitness. At least in my case, all the people that are training with me on the team here are, they have their regular jobs, they have their families, they have their lives outside of kettlebell. They want to drink beer on the weekend, whatever, And so you could write the perfect program, but you also have to be able to adjust it based on, how that person is feeling that day, or what else they have going on in their life, or, and sometimes it's about just doing the best they can to be prepared. Probably not going to all go exactly according to plan, right? They're coming in tired this one day. They skipped the other day with that really important set or whatnot. So I feel like it's, there's only so much you can do with regards to that, if you don't have people who are just solely dedicated to being an athlete, which is rarely the case.
When we talk about helping clients with the challenges of training and balancing that with life, that seems to be the common denominator when we have this dialogue. But at the same time, there's the other side of the coin where you do have some people who are, their go time all the time, and you have to help them improve from the opposite direction, where sometimes you have to pull them back and get them to focus a little bit more and work a little bit less. Do you ever have those? Do you have those clients?
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like there's so many clients like that, and I've definitely been guilty of that kind of thing myself, and just trying to remind them that, less is more in some ways. I definitely there's a few people on the team that like to do, just tons and tons of workouts, and just have to remind them that, like, hey, that's fine if you want to do that, but just know how that is probably going to affect your training. It's going to, you're not going to probably be where you want to be if you're tired and you don't have the energy and the focus to really, think about your technique and be really careful with every rep and make sure that you're, being diligent about your specific training.
And it's one thing to go into like an overreaching phase, but I feel like there's quite a number of people who feel like every workout has to be their overreaching phase. Mm-hmm. And if you just keep pummeling yourself deeper and deeper into the ground, there's consequences for that.
Don't I know it?
Especially if we're planning for something that's in the future.
Totally.
It gets harder and harder to quote peak for that moment when you just keep pushing yourself further.
Well,
and
that's
further
also,
down.
I think, what's hard about kettlebell sport is there's not currently much of a season for kettlebells. It's just like people just want to train kettlebell sport all year round, and I'm like, that's probably not the best idea. You also, like, I've definitely had that challenge myself, is just wanting to go to all the comps. Oh, I want to go to that comp. Oh, but then I want to go to that comp. So I go from one training cycle right to the next, and you can't peak 5, 6, 7 times a year. It doesn't work that way. You have to choose the ones that you want to do really well at, and then be okay with, having an okay performance at the other ones if you want to compete there.
Well, and I think sometimes people don't realize, like, I just went through a phase where I actually cut back on kettlebells, mainly because I was focusing on weightlifting. I was saying to Sully right before the weightlifting competition, I can't wait to get back into kettlebells. But like they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's totally one of those things. Like, I love kettlebell sport, and when I took it away from myself, it makes me only want to do it more, right? So I think that, and that's where tapering back, even having lighter sets, then you crave the heavier sets. Because when I was training for National and Worlds last year, I was saying to Sally, like, I cannot lift the 24 anymore. I am so done. Like, you get tired of it because your body just can't take it. Yeah. And then you taper back, you train lighter, and then you come back up and you're like, oh, okay, this is so much better, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we always go, like, when I write out the programming for the team, we always go back down and wait before we move back up. And, I always get a couple people that kind of like grumble and complain about it. And I've explained to them many times why we do it and what the reasoning is behind it. But some of them will still kind of complain about it. But, you just can't train with the heavy weight for so long. Like you said, both mentally and physically, just burns you out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was all my questions. Do you have any questions?
Are we out of time?
No, we got a couple more minutes.
Well, you put me on the spot. I was going to be ready with a question. And I was like, no, I'll just let Rachel go on. And then I just oh yeah. So on this thread that we've just been talking about with the competitions and you can't be going hard and heavy all the time. Actually, when we first got into the culture some time ago now, I remember a moment when Rachel said to me, we may have been, I think it was when we went to San Francisco to to the first time that we went to the West Coast Kettlebell Classic, you start to identify lifters with, the weight that you kind of know them as being good at lifting. And so, with the ice chamber girls, they're kind of known for lifting the 24s and stuff like that. And then same thing with male pro lifters, we know them as, they lift the 32s and stuff like that. And so we start to identify them with those capacities. But then when we see them hop on the platform with anything lighter than that, it's like, oh, is there something wrong? What's wrong with them? Is it like, why did they drop down? And and I just remember the comment you made about that.
Yeah, I remember. I think it might have been at Ice Chamber, but I think it might have been the second time we went. And I think Jessica lifted the 20 instead of the 24, maybe something like that. And I was like, why is she doing that? But I didn't really understand what the heavy bells did yet. Yeah. Because I was just starting out and I was lifting the 12 and the 16. So like, I think most people, when they begin with the 8, 12, and 16, you think you can do it all the time, every time, right? And then when you get beyond... Yeah. And when you get beyond that, it's not the same. Yeah. So I think like now I get it because I lift down. Yeah. Because I will say, I think this time I should lift the 16. Okay, next time we'll go the 20. And you have to. You definitely have to.
You see it with Dennis too. Like Dennis will go down and lift 24s, even though it's like ridiculously easy for him. He's not ready to lift 32s all the time, and he can't, otherwise he would just totally burn himself out.
That's the same with Charlie. Charlie kind of pulled back 24s, came up to the 28s, then he dropped back down to the 24s. He's coming back
from a long hiatus, and it goes to show the importance of foundation. But the purpose of the progression and the training, it helps you get to that level, but that doesn't mean that that's sustainable or that's, Oh
yeah, and honestly, the immense toll that professional weight takes on your body, because I just know from training double 24s, like if I'm training double 24s, I can barely do anything else, and I'm training them 3 days a week, which some people might not think is that much, but it was literally like I just had to like completely rest in between days, and maybe I would do yoga and like a couple other days to try to balance out and stay like more flexible. But besides that, it would just be like, if I do a workout in between, like I won't be able to complete the next training, both physically and just mentally going into it, feeling like, oh, maybe I'm a little too sore or too tired for this training. Then it was just like mentally would just crush me before I even started the workout, because it just requires so much focus and every rep has to be there.
My reaction actually was, whoa, she was doing that 3 times a week. So you spent all 3 workouts on the 24. You didn't have one that was with the 20s or anything?
Typically how Dennis programs is you start from the lighter weights and then work up. So the last 3 to 4 weeks would be 24s.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So no, not 24s the whole time, but it would be like 3 days a week. We start at, either 12s or 16s, depending on where we're at, and then go through, the certain amount of trainings with each weight, depending how much time there was before moving the 24s. So before I did my first 10-minute set with 24s, I had only done, I think, 6 or 7 minutes with 24s.
Right.
Before I did the comp.
Damn.
But that was also like really slow pace too. So, yeah.
In my mind, that might be a little more painful for me, like sitting in the rack.
Do you try to get people out of the habit of thinking about a competition as a chance to PR or a chance to test themselves? Because we've been talking about you can't be peaking all the time, but at the same time doesn't mean that you can't do a competition.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like a lot of my students are also still in more of the beginning phases. So I only have a couple, maybe two of the ladies who are lifting, 16 at a fast pace or going into 20s, and then 1 or 2 guys lifting 24s. So it's not maybe quite the same because they haven't, not all of them have reached that level where they've kind of hit a challenging plateau yet. Some of them are still, maybe they've switched lifts. So they were snatching with the 12 and now they're doing long cycle with the 12s, which is a little different than, if they've been consistently competing with 16s for the ladies or, 24s for the guys or something like that.
If you could tell kettlebellers one thing, what would it be?
Oh, come on. Get a little more specific than that.
Well, like for athletes competing, like what would you tell them one thing before they would go up on the platform?
Oh.
Don't screw up.
I would probably just tell them to stay calm, stay, especially if it's a doubles 10-minute set. I feel like it's so much more important to stay at a pace where you feel like you can stay mentally composed for a good portion of the set than to go out the gate with an exact pace and number in mind and just get right to it and just, stay right on that pace the whole time. Because I feel like a lot of times that mentally just crushes people because as soon as they miss one rep, okay, now I'm off. And then they either try to speed up to make up for it and then they die, or, they start falling behind because they mentally kind of, got in their own head.
Right. Yeah.
Stay calm, breathe.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking, breathe.
Do you think that a lot of overcoaching happens on game day? I feel
that's
like
really
the
hard
people
for me
who
to say.
Coming back to your comment with helping people with those little mental challenges that happen while they're doing their set, I think it's more important for the inconsistent lifters to have someone there in their corner to kind of remind them of things. Yeah. But, we try to have the training lead them up to that day, and then once you're there, it's like either you got it or you don't. Yeah.
I mean, I think of it that way, is that on game day, there's not really much that I can do anymore. Everything has already been done. So I think it's, more important to just check in. And I try to ask my lifters before the comp, like several weeks before or a week or two before, I say, hey, let me know what you would like me to cue you on the day of, or let me know what you want at the comp. Do you want me to give you a pep talk? Do you want me to count your reps? Do you want me to not say anything? Do you want me to, whatever you want me to do, just let me know. Because I've definitely been guilty of overcoaching people before and having them get kind of pissed at me either during their set or after, and just kind of shut up, I'm saying too much, or it's overwhelming for them. So at this point, I try to I ask them beforehand, hey, do you want me to say anything during your set? Do you want me to cue you? And some of them do, and some of them don't.
It's so funny because people are very, very different. I literally look for Sully in the crowd. I'm like, where is he? And I just want him to even just nod at me to be like, yep, everything's good.
Yeah. Just find where the reflection of the lights is bouncing off of.
Where he, I remember at Worlds, I was like, do you want me to say anything? And he literally was like, do not say good job to me during my set, because he's like, I don't need that. But what he wanted when he did start to slow down was to be reminded to be quick and snappy. So he doesn't want me to sit there and be like, good job, because he doesn't care.
Yeah.
But
I asked you to give me the reps of the other guy, didn't I?
Yes, that was it.
I couldn't see them from where I was.
The competitive edge was coming out a little bit, so I was supposed to yell what everyone else had on the platform.
Hey, everybody needs something different, and people are motivated by different things. Like we talked about before, some people will thrive on the day of the competition, and maybe it doesn't even matter what anyone says, and when people cheer at the end, it will only motivate them to go faster. And then there's people who kind of get anxiety about the competition, and they don't want a ton of people yelling at them, and they maybe don't want any cues at all, or they need some reassurance, just some little things to remind them to focus on a certain part of their technique. So I feel like that's so individual, and it's really important, I think, as a coach to realize that and check in with people and see what actually would be most helpful to them.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Let's wrap it up. We've taken a bunch of your time, and we really appreciate it, though. This has been really informative, not only as coaches, but also to get to know you a lot better, Brittany. And I hope that our listeners have taken a lot away from this episode as well.
Yes, it's been super fun. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
That was quick.
Hey, aren't you going to tell them to check out my website or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting to do that. Yeah, where can people find you?
My website, kbfitbrit.com, has weekly workouts and lots of tips and info about kettlebell sport, including national and world records, as well as you can find me on YouTube, Brittany Van Schravendijk, or just look up kbfitbrit. I'm on Instagram as well, on Facebook. So kbfitbrit is usually the way to find me.
And what about Instagram? Same handle?
Yep, kbfitbrit.
Okay.
Any interesting projects in the work right now before we let you go?
I'm actually working on a really exciting project with Kettlebell Kings. I can't really say more about exactly what it is, but stay tuned for that.
Cool.
Is this like you could tell us, but you'd have to kill it?
Yes, that.
Awesome.
All right, well, fair enough. Again, we appreciate your time, and have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You guys too. Have a great day.